Welcome back to the Buddy Ruski Show, a podcast about origin stories. This is episode 23. My guest today is Lord Fess. Fess is a rapper and entrepreneur hailing from Baltimore, Maryland, but has called Durham home for most of his life. He is one of the first people I met on the scene way back in the early aughts as part of the rap duo Tune and the Real Law, back when he performed under the alias Professor Tune. We talked about overcoming childhood traumas and how those early experiences shaped the rest of his life and his music. As a student at Durham School of the Arts, Fess says being a theater kid is where he developed his love for the stage. It wasn't until years later that his love and knack for rapping would catch up. Recently, Fess has pivoted into other creative endeavors, including talent management and podcasting, while still finding time to continue honing his craft as a musician. Fess is one of my longtime friends in the business. I appreciate the time we've spent together at events, in the office, and occasionally on the basketball court. As always, follow Buddy Ruski on social and sign up to become a member at buddyruski.com. All right, y'all. Here's my conversation with Here's Lord Fess. I still have trouble remembering. I appreciate you being on the show today, man.
Yeah, bro. Shout out to Buddy Ruski, bro. You know, I used to call it Buddy Ruski for the mad longest time.
You and literally everybody else.
Until you, but you corrected me one day in person, but it was this other joint that you had posted where you put in parentheses ROO, like Ruski. I was like, yeah, bro.
I've been doing that a little bit on my social accounts to try to preempt people, but it's funny because Aaron Mandel still does it, and I can't get myself to correct him.
You gotta correct him, bro.
I just let it go.
You gotta correct them. As brown people, we have to correct non-brown people on stuff these days too, bruh. I had somebody who was still like. Somebody was still calling me Tune for the longest time, and I'm like, nah, B, that's not my name. And we threw that in the trash. We buried it in the backyard, and it can't be found unless you got a metal detector. But the problem is, it's not metal. Like, bro, like I was like, no, just like, well, I'm just gonna call you that, and I'm like, well, I'm just not gonna answer. Like, all right, dude, I got something for that ass. Like, oh, is your can we? What's yours? We can curse on yours, or you can believe
we can say whatever the fuck we want on this show.
Yo, it is so wonderful because you know my situation. I got some corporate Overwatch, so I can't say fuck on my podcast, but I
let
can say
loose,
fuck
man.
on the Buddy Ruski podcast. This is gonna be so lovely.
Yeah, I appreciate you being on the show, and I know we just got done doing the live show a couple weeks ago with Sierra and Juice. And Rang and Nevi and everyone that came out for Super Secret Dance Party. Yeah, that was really fun.
Can I just say Super Secret's branding is like top notch. Nobody in the area doing branding, like between the soap bar stickers and the magnets and everything. Like I gotta get my game up. I gotta step my game up. Shout
Aspirational
out to
for sure.
Facts.
But yeah, we covered a little bit about the here and now, but something I really enjoy doing on this show is giving people insight into where folks come from, what their origin story is, how they got to where they are. So I'd love to start there with you. I know we've been acquainted for almost a decade now through our buddy Gabe at Runaway. But let's backtrack before that and give people a sense of where you come from and how we got here today.
Shit. Well, before I was Big Fess, I was little old me in the city of Baltimore in the middle of the crack epidemic that was going on. And that was rough.
If people have seen The Wire, are you like an extra in the background somewhere?
I'm positive I gotta be an extra at some point. All the projects that they filmed in, like I had to be an extra. Now I think I was down here by the time they started filming, but everything in The Wire is as true as you can think it is, bro. And that's just what it is. Like I grew up, anybody that listens to this podcast from the Maryland, DC area, I grew up on the corner of Biddle, you know what I'm saying, right beside I can't remember the name of the Catholic like cathedral and stuff. Like it was right there at the corner. I gotta call my mama. She would be mad that I even forgot the name of that church. But like I grew up on the corner of Biddle, and then we moved to move closer to downtown to Baltimore Street. But like right around that time, they had just started displacing people, and people from the hood was moving into those houses. So it was same shit. My granddaddy whole block. Currently, right now, I think there's only 3 houses standing on that block. On my brother block, there's only 4. Everything else is either burnt down or it's abandoned, and it's still fiends living in those cribs today. Like my brother told me like a couple weeks ago, he's like, yeah, we had to go next door, kick the door in, and kick the crackheads out because they be trying to warm up the houses and shit. And when they warm up the houses, that's how a lot of the house fires and stuff like start out there. So that's what I grew up in. And then when I moved here, I moved to a double wide trailer in Creedmoor, North Carolina. You know what
When
I'm
did you come
saying?
down
So
here? How old were you when you came down here?
shit, I think that was the summer it's the summer of 5th grade. However old you is at that point in time. How old are you in 5th grade?
10, I guess. Yeah, about 10.
Like 10 or 11, some shit like that, like 10 or 11. Um, I got down here, moved straight, like complete culture shock, hella country. It was me, my mom, and my 2 sisters, and we moved in with my aunt, her 2 sons, and her husband. Rest in peace, Uncle Rocky. Um, so we moved into that type of situation. So it's not like we moved into like the lavish life, but that's what it was. Because I mean, you listen to like my early music and shit. My mom is a domestic violence survivor and shit. My stepdad, who suffered from mental health, bipolar disorder, and a few other disorders and shit, uh, he went my whole childhood undiagnosed. So the abuse, even though unexcused, had a deeper, you know what I'm saying? Like it was a whole deeper thing with that. And by the time he eventually got help, I think he was too far gone. Um, and I feel bad for my sisters in this aspect because at the same time where I'm hating this guy for having my mom in a fucked up situation and abuse and stuff like that, me also dealing with my own mental health later in life, it's like I also relate to bruh a little bit. And that even hurts to even relate to this dude I had grown so much hate for. A few years back, I think it's been like 5 years now, he took his own life. So everything was too far gone. And also, they be throwing all the black dudes on mental health and shit. They throw and fill us full of meds and shit with all the side effects, and they don't tell you the fucking ramifications of that. So I got a whole nother soapbox to stand on with that shit. But I think they just pumped him full of medicine because he was an older guy at that point and like, here, take a bunch of medicine. And you should see, bro, when he was on that medicine, he was a shell of even himself.
Yeah.
Like even the abusive nigga, like I could tell that shit had changed him. I'm like, Jesus, like what is the answer and shit like that. But that's a whole different convo. So we moved down here. My mom got her life together and shit like that. She started working herself to death though, because not being a wife no more, and she got 3 jobs, she got 3 kids to take care of. She probably could have got by on 2 jobs, but black women got kind of have this idea that they gotta overwork themselves and shit like that. And it's preached to us so much that we gotta just work and grind and not enjoy the fruits of your labor and shit like that.
Yeah. And there are certainly ways that the system doesn't allow for people of color, specifically women of color. You know, we hear all the time, unfortunately, about wage disparities between men and women and their jobs. So, so you're, I'm sure your mother is constantly thinking like, it's never enough.
And that's what it was. It was like, ain't nothing enough. It won't no vacation time. It won't no rest time. Like, I don't even think my family traveled for a whole 10 years. Like, I mean, like when I say travel, like, bro, I had only been to Baltimore in the surrounding areas, in Durham, in the surrounding areas. So it's like Creedmoor, Raleigh, fuck Greensboro. What the fuck is that? You know what I'm saying? It's a 40-minute drive. We do that in our sleep. Like we literally could sleepwalk to Greensboro, but that's all I had been to and known, you know what I'm saying? Like shit like that. And it took a while for me to even learn that. It took a while for my mom to even learn, like, yo, you know what I mean? Like my mama was fucking 45 when she finally went to like Jamaica and the Bahamas and went on a cruise and shit like that. She was like 45, 50 years old. Like nobody should fucking wait till 45, 50 years old to go overseas and see some pretty ass, clear ass water. You know what I mean?
I love that for her, though. I appreciate you sharing that, and I'm glad that
Oh
she's
yeah,
been
yeah.
able to do that.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was funny when pandemic first hit. She was in Jamaica, bro. I was watching, so I knew her boat number and everything. And not to mention my sisters and my girl was with her. They all went and took a girls' trip to Jamaica. So this whole time I'm watching the boat, and like, because you hear in the news, they're like, oh, we might stop the boats and seize them at the border and just keep them there and quarantine them for 2 weeks. I'm like, oh, God, my mom about to be stuck on the boat for like two
Was she on a
weeks.
cruise ship?
She was on a cruise ship, yep.
Oh,
And they had
okay.
just got back from Jamaica. They spent 4 days in Jamaica, yeah.
That's
Just
tough.
got back. Yeah, that's tough. Like beginning of the pandemic. And mind you, I'm already scared. Like I done bought me a new strap and everything because people like, oh, people gonna start looting and stealing and all this. And I'm like, oh yeah, not in here. You gonna run into Bertha. You can try it if you want to. But because I got a little girl, so I gotta protect the crib by any means necessary at that point. And yeah, and I was in the middle of the madness. I was one of the ones texting all my friends, "Yo, bro, if we gotta go get in the bunker out and we could call Tracy. He got a crib and we could sit on the roof and be Overwatch." Like I'm in the bad episode of Call of Duty at this point, bro. And she was on the boat and shit. So that shit was just wild. But I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but that shit was wild.
What how long had you been thinking about uh becoming a rapper? When did that
Never,
start for you? Never.
never in my life did I think I would make over $100 off a rap.
But did you want to
Let
be a
alone
rapper, or was being a rapper not even a consideration as a career?
no. I had dreams of being Michael, but as you know, I never learned a steady jump shot. Um, I mean, at the time, it was promising because I had a 36, 37-inch vertical and I could dunk the ball backwards. So anybody in the hood was like, oh, he could dunk. Ain't nobody tell me otherwise. Like, oh, bro, you need to develop some handles. And
Yeah.
now my handle was okay when I was younger. But the main thing is you need to develop at least a steady jump shot. And I never developed that. I had a bunch of physical tools that so my cousin, my little cousin, shout out to Sales. He was a 5-star athlete. And Bradshaw that we hoop with actually ran against my little cousin in college. But he was 5-star for University of South Carolina. They track program is crazy. And he said, yeah, bro, I would have just told you to just go ahead and run track. Because I would have been a crazy track athlete.
For some reason, I thought you did run in high school.
I did not run track at all in high school, not even long distance, bro. Think most of my physical traits because we been on the same rec league teams and all that. Somebody could have took me to some promised land. There's a university that would have loved my services on the track and field. Like, if nothing else, like there was some event for me. I don't know what it had been. I'm not a coach, and I've never done that for a living. But some coach would have looked at me and found an event for me to do at a high level on the track.
So how did you get to Durham? You said when you moved down here from Baltimore, you all moved.
We moved to Creedmoor. Then we finally
went to
found a
DSA
crib.
eventually, right?
Yeah, eventually. But I was fucking up at Southern. I played football, and to be honest, I was better at high school football than I was at high school basketball. Like way better. Like I didn't ride the pine in football because I was fast. You know what I mean? I rode the pine in basketball. Like all my homies know that. Like I was just an athletic guy. So maybe I make the team, but I ain't getting no playing time. I can play defense, I guess it depends on what system I ended up in too, and politics and stuff like that. But my theater teacher, he was like, "Hey, I think you got a real good chance of getting in the lottery." So my senior year, he like nudged my mom and was like, "Yo, you know what I mean? See if bro could, sign up for the lottery, see what happens." I honestly think they pulled some strings somehow. I think it was still a who you know, not what you know type of deal
It
because
always is.
I didn't even have to audition. I ain't even auditioned for the theater program. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be saying that out loud, but whatever. It's been a while now. But yeah, I didn't even audition. First week, we started auditioning for stuff, and I got like support and role for this play called Mother Courage. That was first week of school, and mind you, I had got over there with nothing but like whatever the Durham public school equivalent of theater teaching is. Like I didn't have any formal nothing. So I think it was my love of stage that really took over once I was out of high school and just kind of like gave me a gravity towards rap music. But I wouldn't even say I was able to rap in 12th grade for real, for real. I think I could throw together some rhyming words, and I had good comic timing and good improv skills just from theater. But other than that, there was nothing that said he's going to be a rapper. It was nothing that really like it won't no done deal. It won't like for sure like, oh yeah, that boy gonna rap when he older. Like nah.
Well, there's some translatable skills there. I think the stage presence being a big one. I know our buddy De Facto was also a big part of the theater when he was in school. Can't remember if he was at DSA.
Nah, I think he came out of Hillside program, which was one of the top programs in the area.
You're right.
Yeah, they actually had money to spend on their theater program and shit.
So I think, it makes sense that having that stage presence and being interested in theater would eventually lead to finding other outlets to be on stage.
Right.
Did you have influences growing up in hip hop music? Were there people that you listened to that if you could, if you look back now, are like, oh, actually those people really are what I tried to emulate as I grew into my own as a hip hop artist?
It's wild to say. I used to listen to Busta a lot, but I never tried to emulate him at all.
That makes sense to me though.
One, he rapped too fast or whatever. I think I maybe took some cues from him energy wise. But other than that, like I was always trying to be weird. I was still trying to find my pocket in life in general. And I think that kind of shaped me as an artist because the fact that I didn't belong kind of shaped the way that I went about rapping. And it wasn't until later, like in the last like 2 or 3 years, to where I stopped trying so hard to not belong because you could get stuck real hard in the hipster land where now you're being hyper conscious and hyper aware of how much you actually belong and the things that you have to do to not belong anymore. Because like I'm trying to be weird. So I was real experimental and explorative in how I went about. I remember there's this verse from like a couple years after I was supposed to graduate. And the thing about that verse is I remember the subject matter. I know I was rapping about a mouse, but I have no fucking idea where the verse went. I can't remember it if I tried right now. But I know for sure I was rapping about a mouse. And it's like, why the fuck are you rapping about a mouse? But I was actually chasing one of my homies too. So one of my homies could rap back in the day. And we had this little rap group in high school called Empire. But I was like the worst out of the whole group. I was the worst, like to the point where by the end of senior year, I had got kicked out the group. And I was just hanging with the theater kids. Like we used to do like rap battles at the lunch table, and I would have like the worst verse, or nobody would get it. Because now I want to go see if there's an old recording, like somebody had a camcorder or something recording one of the old verses. I probably was murdering, honestly, but people didn't get it. I was ahead of my time at that point. But I got kicked out the rap group. And and no shade, but I'm better than all of the rappers that were in that rap group with me back then. I love you guys if you hear this, but y'all know what it is now at this point. But yeah, like I was chasing like a couple of them, and the verses that they were spitting were actually a little advanced for our age too. So it was dope, and they had promise back then. I didn't have promise at the time. Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was on my. Yeah, I don't know if that was on my end or not, but it's still recording. So I think the place we left off, you were just talking about how trash all the other people in your group were. So
No. They weren't trash. They was good. I was trash. They was good. And then I got kicked out of the group.
Was Pierce Freeline in this group?
Pierce was not in this group. And Pierce a little older than me, so I don't think we would have even been hanging out at that point in time. But you should ask Pierce about this epic brawl that happened in the basement of the mansion back in high school. Just because I know people that was involved in that brawl, and then later in life I found out that was Pierce's house that brawl happened in.
Okay.
Because everybody was talking about that brawl like the next week. Including a former MMA champion.
Oh,
like
wow.
UFC, like a former UFC.
There's some investigating to be done here.
Yes, sir. That brawl was crazy. I'm pretty sure the cops got called, everything. We later in life now, so Miss Nina ain't gonna give her no whooping or nothing for all the stuff that happened that weekend. But yeah, I don't know how involved Pierce was, but I know for positive that it was Pierce's crib that the brawl happened in. And I know for positive that a former UFC champion was involved in this brawl, and a bunch of hood niggas and people from Durham.
Well,
it went down.
Well, if we need to, we'll make sure to censor some of that so no one gets the cops called on them. I guess that, however many
the statute of
later,
limitations the statute of limitations is so gone. No murders were committed. Think about it. Bro went on to be a UFC champion, so he got his life together too. I'm glad he found some good use for his fist.
So it sounds like things were sort of up and down at school, at DSA.
Things were down and down. Okay. I was flunking out. Teachers was trying their best to keep me on the sports teams, to keep me in theater, because in order to perform, we had to have a certain GPA and shit like that. Like you couldn't just show up and show out. So I got one good feature presentation out, and then by then I started fucking off, man, and it was downhill from there. I think I even skipped a whole month of school. I ain't go to school for a whole month, bro. The shit was wild. So I didn't know what I was gonna do. I had a nice little job working at Duke University, and for a high school kid, that job was fire. I could have brought a car, even though I didn't buy a car at that time in my life. Stupid. But I could have easily brought a car and held down an apartment. I eventually ended up getting my own apartment. But just being young and stupid and hadn't even started really rapping. The homies who had kicked me out the rap group, they had a couple open mics and stuff, and they put me on them. But by then, I had met my man's Law and started rapping with him. And I saw a microphone. Me and his and the mother of his child were real cool in high school. So I would be over their crib. Like she had like the hang spot at the school. So everybody would kind of go over there. Like me, Nunu, just different people from the hood, Reese, like everybody. So we would go over there. And then I came in one day, didn't knock, because that was just kind of like the thing. That's what happened. We went in, we ain't knock. I went in, we ain't knock. I just go straight for the fridge, and I see this real deep voiced dude like on the couch, like, "Oh, hey, who is this?" Now, like, "What's up, bro?" You know what I'm saying? introduced myself, and I went and kept getting my snacks out the fridge. I think I was getting like some juices, like some chips, probably making some oodles and noodles because we would always snatch our oodles and noodles. But Law, he had his microphone over there, and he was taking his craft seriously. And he actually, at that point, had some calls from some labels and stuff. And I'm like, "Oh, bro, you do music? You rap?" I was like, "Yeah, I can rap too." And that's what everybody says.
Literally everybody.
Even if they have an inkling of freestyle skills, like, "Yeah, you rap? I rap too." First of all, bro, we just had the concert at the Fruit. And no offense to bro, but a dude literally walked up and was like, "Hey, man," he walked up to me, the guy who had just poured his heart out on stage and probably gave one of my best performances in the last like 3 years. You know what I'm saying? He said, "Yeah, man, I rap too. I just want to know who I had to talk to, hop on stage and hop on the mic." Hop on the mic? Like, bro, fuck is you talking about? Do you see what I just did? Like, do you really want to follow that, bro? Like, no offense to bro, but I doubt he was gonna get on stage and do that exact thing that I just did.
I needed to go to some like live podcast. I need to hit up Ezra Klein or like somebody and just be like, "Oh, after you're done, can I get 15 minutes to just like,
can I just get 15 minutes to interview a nigga like on stage?" Like what, bro? Like I did a whole. First of all, you think you about to rap in front of all these people who I've been passing flyers and QR codes and shit out to all month, like beating. Man, I had to ice my knee one day. I was on the street so long passing out shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like post-pandemic, to get 800 people into a building is not an easy task. So I should have told bro, like, "Yeah, you got $150, then I'll let you hop on stage." Like, I'm gonna start just charging people. Like, I hate when janky promoters do shit like that, but now I kind of relate to them a little bit now. Like, that pay to play type shit, I shit on that. I spit on that. I throw up on that. I tell people never pay to play and stuff like that. But now I see why some of the stuff that's in place is in place, because the homie really walked up to me and literally said, bruh, and I mean, if he listened to it, it is what it is. I hope I don't lose a fan or a follower or whatever. But he really walked up to me and was like, "Yeah, what I gotta do to hop on stage?" I was like, "Well, this is what you got to do to hop on stage. You got to go out 30 days beforehand and print up some flyers, right? Make sure that the design is real cool and all your marketing is in place. Then the next thing is, every time that you see a group of young women and young fellas walking down the street, you're like, 'Hey, yo, y'all look like y'all like good music.' And you got to go talk to them, and you got to not turn them off at the same time with your talking skills. You got to really reel them in and sell this free show to them. And then you got to tell them that you one of the best up and coming artists." Like, it's mad shit you got to do to hop on stage, my nigga. And walking up to me at the end of my performance is not the thing that you got to do to hop on stage. Like, for real. And it was just, and I didn't realize how much that had annoyed me until just now on this podcast. I was today years old, and I realized how much I really be annoyed by that. Because I be a real people person when I'm in the mix of it and I'm performing, and then everybody want to talk to me because I feel that responsibility to talk to and network with everybody and let them make sure that they know that they're a part of the show. And this moment was for all of us and not just for me and shit like that. But at the same time, pandemic then kind of turned my introvert meter more up to the positive. Like, I'm technically as outgoing as I have always been, but I don't like cameras as much as I used to. Cameras make me feel weird. I find myself looking away from the camera a lot. Like, I don't even look in the camera. Like, I'm almost like, you be the thought, if you didn't know me, you just thought I was high functioning. You know what I mean? Like, for real. Because even making eye contact with people sometimes is just weird to me. We ain't been around people for 2 years. And that at the show was even a task, me talking to everybody. So then to get the annoying, like, and I don't want to just seem like I'm just completely turned off by people walking up and asking questions and shit like that. Like, please walk up and ask me questions, but you just got to also think about what you're asking. You're at an event that you came to and there's hella people there. A group of people did a lot of work to get all those people in the building. and attentive and prepared to pay attention to a show and DJs spinning this work and shit like that. Whereas you can't just really think, you can just come off the street. Like, and that's why gatekeepers in the hip hop space, I guess, matter still a little bit. And even though I hate when people like Ebro, it's still needed, because without the gatekeeper, people would literally just walk up and be like, yo, what I gotta do to hop on stage? And it's like, you mean right now? Like you want to grab the mic and hop on stage right now. You ain't come to sound check. You ain't checking to the venue. You ain't negotiating no prices, none of that. But you want to hop on stage. I got you. And
lessons
I
learned,
think
I guess.
Yeah, lessons learned. I think it's also people not understanding the up and coming space. Like, this ain't no open mic, big dog. Like, I've been in the studio with like greats. You know what I'm saying? I just haven't had my moment yet. So it's almost disrespectful to everything that I've been through for him. Oh, can I hop on stage like right now? Actually, no, you cannot actually. So yeah.
So you were talking a little bit about that moment when you and Law met and started to connect, because that was a big, when I first met you in the downtown arts community, that was
right.
Y'all were the dudes. That was, I knew Gabe was doing the fashion stuff, and y'all were up on stage rocking the DRM shirts, and it was like, okay, there's something going on here.
Right.
So yeah, tell me a little bit more about how that relationship built into a music partnership.
So me and Law, we started doing open mics and shit, but it was still no scene at the time. What year would you say the scene took off? Like, I'm thinking,
yeah,
I want to see what you say.
I mean, took off like
20, it just became
2012, 2013.
I'm on 2012. I just wanted to see what you was gonna say. I would say 2012 was when the scene became a thing that you could tell people from out of town about.
Yeah.
And
that
you could say,
right.
Come here, and we had a night scene. There was a college night scene. There was a arts and show scene, local music scene, homegrown scene, the DIY scene. Like, all of that was kind of becoming one. And then there was, because I think the biggest thing was everybody in their different sections started to communicate with each other, because we all saw a space to grow at that point. And me and Law, the thing with us was, at the place where Durham was at the time we started rapping, because my shit, depending on what song I perform, I might not be welcomed in certain spaces because I'm low-key subgenreless. There's no subgenre in my rap. People like, who you rap like? Everybody. I could do everything. So I use my vocals, I use auto-tune, I use my lyrics and my metaphors and my likes and my asses just as well. So it really just depends on the song and the project that I'm doing. You pop singers, y'all about to get this work too. Trust and believe. Just want to let them know that. It's putting them on notice that I'm in a new space now, since I got some real songs written under my belt. But it was one of those things where we weren't welcomed into the music spaces because the music spaces were still quote unquote rock clubs at the time. They weren't indie music scenes. They were rock scenes, and more specifically indie rock scenes. So bands like fucking Megaphon, Bowerbirds, and shit like that was popping off. It won't no space for Tune and the Real Law. There won't no space for Lord Fess. There won't no space for De Facto Thespian. There was a space for The Beast and like Pierce and them, but that's just a different space to occupy. And then he also had some history to lean on in order to get into those spaces, whereas we didn't have that. And my hair has always been not the most kempt hair, so no matter how well I talk and how well I can talk the draws off a giraffe, you know what I mean, I can't go into a bar and convince this people to book my band. So me and Law, we were doing open mics, and that won't really the space for us. And then we would email, and we were ahead of the game. We realized the power of email. We was emailing people for opening gigs, but we weren't getting yeses yet. Like rappers would be trying to text people and like bogart their way into space and like, nah, get you a manager. Or if not, like luckily it was like 3 or 4 of us. It was me, Law, but also Shazad, who I had went to community college with, that we had. So it was a few people. But the mouthpiece, so to speak, of the band was me, and I'm the darkest guy in the band. Like all of us are brown, all of us are POCs, but at the same time, I'm the darkest, but it just so happened I'm the one with the gift of gab for the most part. But first I got to rewind and say that Law spent like 5 years overseas and shit on deployment. So during all this time, I'm just honing my skills. He had a bunch of recording equipment, and he loaned me all of his recording equipment while he was fighting a fucking war over oil and gas. So by the time Law had come back, now it's 2012. 2012, well, it's the end of 2011. And Salim Reshenwala, Kid Ethnic, shout out to Kid Ethnic Films. Him and Jason Ho shot my first music video because they saw me at this benefit for, I forgot what the benefit was for, but I know Phil Cook had hit me on Reverb Nation and asked me, did I want to rock?
It wasn't the Wounded Warrior show.
No. We didn't start doing Wounded Warrior shit until Law started taking control of all of the benefit stuff and what we, like Turkeys for Durham and what we were giving back to and all that stuff. Like shout out to Law for all of that. But Law had just came back, the video had dropped, and I think the weekend that we shot the video, he had just come back from his last deployment.
Wow.
So if you look in the back of the video, his arms are like this big at the time because he had just got back. He's sunburned, arms big as shit. He in the back, he don't look like my rap partner. He looked like my security guard at the time, like shoulders bulging and shit like that. But I had just got back from the Pro-Am. Durham, please bring back the Pro-Am. And me and Buddy Ruski need team placement as automatics, as local pillars of the scene who can also like we need that bump. Like bring the Pro-Am back. We gotta holler at Rashid. Yo, Sheed might bring back the Pro-Am. We can holler at Sheed to bring the Pro-Am back, bro.
I'm gonna start GMing right now.
Facts. Shout out to Sheed. He coaching locally now. I really respect him for taking a local coaching job. He could have had any coaching job around the fucking world. So that's dope to bring it back home. But
what was the music video that you all shot that Salim
it was that Hulk Smash video, that old wonky skateboard-esque Hulk Smash video. I can't stand it when people bring that video back up. I mean, it was a great quality video. I'm just more so being hard on myself.
It's a product of its time.
Critic. It is a product of its time. So we still needed to perform because now we had this cool video. People wanted us to rap, and we ain't really had nowhere to rap for real. Not no steady spot. So me and Law just emailed the venues and said, what's up? And started figuring out the deals. I'm pretty sure we got shitted on in some of those early deals. Like we weren't offered any alcohol sales, any back end. We probably was just getting like a $200 guarantee, like little shit like that. We were just learning the booking game from the ground up. Played a few times. Casbah, shout out to old Casbah. Shout out to Gardner for kind of like prepping us for the booking world. But at that point in time, couldn't nobody tell us nothing because now we in control of our own shows. So we booking whoever the fuck we want. But now we getting seen in front of all these venues. So when the touring acts come through, because at this time, 2012, the touring acts start to come through Durham too. Big Frida come through, who they call us.
Mm-hmm.
Lil Dicky come through, who they call us. Bone Thugs and Harmony come through, who they call us. De La Soul come through, who they call us. Meek Mill come through, who they call us. And the names just started getting bigger and bigger.
Run the Jewels.
Run the Jewels come through, who they call. Run the Jewels on New Year's Eve might I add. Like, stop fucking playing with us. Like, we was really putting in work, but it was because we had made our own space, because just black music was not it didn't make, I didn't feel welcome downtown yet.
I would
I
say
made
black
myself
culture in
feel welcome.
general. I wasn't even just
Black
black
culture
music.
in
I think
general,
in
like
black culture in general, it just wasn't as prominent as it should have been.
right. It was enjoyed behind closed doors by people who were not of color. It wasn't proudly worn on your chest like it is today.
And there,
But
like, Art of Cool was started around that same time. At least the festival, Art of Cool festival, and
a
that
little
helped.
later than 12.
Yeah,
AOC
right.
was like 15, 14, 15.
Yep. And then
Yeah.
BU Cafe and some of the events that Dorian was doing over at BU started to bring some of that too. But you're right. I mean, there just wasn't.
Right.
I mean, that's how I think of it at
But
that time.
even think about the first hopscotch. Like, black music wasn't as prominent as it is in the later years. You know what I mean? Like black music won't on the main stage per se.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if it was on the main stage, it wasn't as much of it as there is now. But we had to just, do our own thing. And then people realized there was money to be made. And then that's when all the hip hop shows in the area, like, I'm not even gonna cap, like, Lil Brother, Ninth Wonder, and all them, like, they spearheaded the culture of hip hop in the area. But as far as the hip hop show, I'ma just have to go. If Law won't say it, I'ma just go ahead and say it. We kind of wrote the blueprint of what it looked like to start throwing your own local rap shows, like, to the point where then you stop charging us that insurance fee. Like, it's rappers who still getting charged that insurance fee off the top, because for those of you who don't know, like, holla at your local government and shit, but like state and national, if you're throwing an urban music show of any genre, if it can be labeled urban music, you got to pay more in insurance. You got to pay more in insurance than a folk show. Why the fuck is that? You know what I'm saying? That's some systemic shit right there. That's gotta get, like, we gotta get past that. But they started looking out for us and stopped charging us that fee. They would pay that fee for us because they wanted our shows to go on, because we was really developing a culture. Won't no fights at our events, won't no shootings, won't none of that shit. And it ain't like we had Pussyfoot and Candy Crush, the rapper, there. Like, we was having, like, people who really live in that life, as well as people who in the backpack life and the other different subgenres. Like, we won't, like, dialing it back or nothing like that. We was just letting niggas know from the jump, like, hey man, if we gonna keep building this, then we gotta do it. So let your people know, handle themselves with grace, just like everybody else. And that's what happened. And it's not many people who can be leaders in that space and say, hey bro, we on our best shit tonight. You know what I'm saying? We in our church clothes tonight. Like, we doing a thug thizzle. And plus, for all of my cisgender males out there, ain't no point in all that pushing and shoving, because there's too many women out here for us to be worried about touching on each other anyway. Like, why I'm gonna push and shove you when there's so much vibe in here? It's so much vibe. Like look at the bar. Somebody actually said that. It was like, yo, y'all got one of the most diverse crowds, period. Like, you came to a Tune and Law show, you could find black folks, you could find white folks, you could find Christians, you could find Muslims, you could find anybody from any walk of life. You could find LGBTQ in front row at a rap show, where a lot of rap shows, you know who I'm talking about. Like, when rappers is getting canceled, you could find anybody at one of our shows. Like, and it still rings true today. The last Lord Fess show that you went to, everybody was in there and every fucking body was having fun. Like, it is what it is. And I feel like we did a really good job of cultivating that culture early. And then people did a really good job coming behind us and keeping that shit moving. Shout out to Beats and Bars. Shout out to Cypher University. Shout out to Suleiman and all of the urban music that he includes and everything that he throws. Shout out to Sicily for keeping the culture going early on. Shout out to fucking everybody. Shout out to Runaway. Y'all had the culture going. Like, but a lot of that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't just took a risk and put a couple of our own dollars in there and throwing our own events like early on, man.
Yeah, I think very fondly of that time because there was a sense that if you wanted to build something, the foundation was being built for all these different seeds to blossom. And granted, like 2012, Obama just got reelected. So there's like
we felt hella empowered at the time.
I'm dead serious. I think that there was like a certain amount of like real aspirational energy, not just in music, but like, you and I have spent a lot of time at American Underground and the tech community that is being built there, that was built there. The arts community, of course, the food scene, like all that stuff just started to pop off. And to your point, there started to be overlap too. So restaurant owners were trying to put on,
Special
music
events
shows and stuff.
shit.
Yeah. I feel grateful to Ari at 9th Street Bakery. He helped us put on a bunch of events in that little patio area that he's got at 9th Street Bakery. So yeah, and then from those things, we got Art of Cool Festival, we got Moog Fest that decided to come here and bring tons of really big acts, and some of the, I'm not going to say everything was perfect, but I felt like it offered opportunities for us to reach even higher, but it took that initial foundation for the scene to really be built. And I, that, not to jump too far, but since we're here, I feel like Durham has lost that a little bit. And I don't know if you feel this way, because I know you've got your hands in a bunch of different things. You got your own podcast coming out and all this stuff, but it seems like, and maybe honestly, I do think that Trump being president, at least for me, like made me feel a lot less, as Durham is changing architecturally, but then also culturally. I think Durham started to change a little bit, or just the makeup of Durham felt like it was changing. And then the way that particularly like North Carolina politics and Trump and all that stuff became more in our face. And yeah, I just remember it not feeling nearly as, I don't know what the word is, but
it lost some of its sauce. Let me help you.
Yeah.
Because rap words, we can use a whole bunch of different words to mean what you're looking for. It did lose its sauce. But I think people just didn't know what the next step was too when it lost its sauce. So the sauce was more so energy at the same time and momentum. I think just some of the momentum like waned off. It was
kind of
like
plateaued a little bit.
Yeah, hell yeah. It did, because there wasn't a what's next in the art scene, what's next in the food scene. People just got comfortable because they're like, oh, this is it.
Yeah. And I do think that art gets exploited a lot sometimes. That's something that,
boy, let me tell you.
Yeah. You because I agree. I think that I feel comfortable saying that I feel like a lot of the early, and certainly there were pioneers before our era that made it possible for us to do things. And so I don't want to make it out like we were the only ones that made Durham what it is, but I do feel
we
like
was the ones, bro.
I do think that there is a, that era really brought downtown alive in a way that it is still reaping the benefits of, but you don't see this. I mean, and granted, COVID the last year and a half has prevented some of these things from taking place. But, I think about the Cypher out in CCB Plaza and whether or not, that will that ever come back? And if it does, like, will it even be accepted in that space again? The Carrick moving from Parish Street, further sort of out of downtown.
So the Cypher's back. The Cypher's back now. Both of them. Yeah, the NC State Cypher and the Durham Cypher are
I
back.
guess that's good.
Um, the Durham Cypher is 919 right on City Plaza, so it's
Yep.
outside and you can gather in a safe distance if you're not comfortable being elbow to elbow with a person.
Yeah.
And there's a DJ and everything out there. The NC State Cypher still at the Freedom Expression Tunnel, and them boys not gonna let up, especially the NC State Cypher.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's
the
an
Durham
institution.
Cypher, yeah, they cyphed outside, and then all of them like text me like, "Yo, did I miss your set? We on the way." And they all humped it over to the fruit right after the cipher. Cipher was at 919. I was supposed to go on around 10:15. As you know, I was on CP time and I went on a little late. But and all of the homies that was at the cipher got to experience the show too. So
Yeah.
that was like really one of the dopest things to see that they still got their shit going on, but they still came through to support my shit too. So,
I
yeah.
think one of the things, we mentioned the scene sort of plateauing, and I feel like particularly in arts, that's one of the challenges is that a lot of artists don't, well, I won't speak for all artists, but I think a symptom in arts communities often like people are really honing their craft and working on their art and not thinking about the business moves and how to sort of navigate that side of things. And that is where there were maybe missed opportunities for us in that early 2010s arts community to not just bring the energy and momentum, like you said, but to invest in ownership and getting our piece of the pie long term. There are certainly places, institutions like the Pinhook that are still around that I'm very grateful that they're able to continue moving forward. But even a place like the Casbah that has changed hands, I don't know how many times in the 10 years. Yeah. So it seems like there is an opportunity, if there are lessons to be learned, I think in this past decade, which is crazy to even think that it's been almost a decade, is
Right.
how can you invest in ownership so that you can have even more control? You were talking about having control over booking, but the next step
Right.
to me is like having control of the venue. And so that to me is where I would love to try and push who's left of the arts community here.
There's some homies, I don't know if you know about this. There's some homies who were actually looking into everybody getting together and just getting the club, doing the venue, and seeing what pops from there. But from what I hear from the outside looking in, because I wasn't like, they chatted with me about it, but I wasn't necessarily in like I was going to be helping them run it or anything. But I think the city kind of blocked a lot of that shit because they found out what the use was going to be for and stuff like that. Whereas it wasn't going to be another bar. It was going to be like a dance venue with probably some traveling shows coming in too. Because I think Durham is ready for a Ritz. Like we need a Live Nation venue or something comparable. But what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like we can. And there was one, what's the one across from Scrap Exchange that didn't make it through the pandemic?
I don't
it's
remember.
Right across from the Scrap Exchange.
But that is, I've been saying since probably since 2012 when all this stuff started, that is if we were to get a Cat's Cradle like venue, Lakewood Shopping Center was the space to do it. And now that Scrap Exchange is over there, maybe, I don't know if that could still happen, but
the venue is a dance school now. But the next time one of those bandos becomes vacant, like I really just want to look into what it takes to get hold of it and how much money we got to dump into it, because that's really the next step. Holler at DJ Rain, because he got him, and
he's always got ideas. He's actually one of the people that I was in conversations with 5 years ago about a venue.
You probably know about everything, but him and Tommy and them got some shit that they're working on. So I hope that turns out to be everything that they want it to be, because that could be a move. But we still need that bigger 1,000 person, 800 person space.
Yeah.
for the larger acts to really come through.
Yeah.
And then we have clubs and shit like that for them to come do the after parties. And it could really become a money cycle that a lot of the larger cities have. You know what I mean?
I just wonder, I'd be curious to do a straw poll with folks from the arts community here on who really like made it off of the things that happened in the scene in the last 7 years. You know, like the fact that Moogfest came here for however many years, or, you know, even Art of Cool, or just like all these big events, all this stuff, the new buildings that got built, all the things that have happened. I wonder if like the artists and the boots on the ground, how many of them are able to now, like, you know, afford to buy a home in Durham. You know, there's so much stuff that's happening here, and I'm curious if,
it's probably not a lot, but I would love, like, let's consider this an open call for artists who think that they can quote unquote make it, and at the very least buy a crib off of your art. Let's just say that's making it. Can you buy a house outright off of your art? And if you can you afford to buy a crib off of your art? So let's call that the borderline of making it, right? I want to put out a call to any artists who think they can to holler at me, and I can tell you how you actually can. Because it wasn't many of us, like, since I was in the booking scene and behind the scenes, and like, for people who don't know, like, I curated all the hip hop for 2016 Moogfest. So that dope ass bill, you know what I'm saying, that I was a part of, I was also in the office helping them build that. You know what I mean? And I was under NDA for the longest time, but I'm positive that is expired now. And plus, the people in charge of that don't care that I'm telling people that fact now. So anybody who else got anything to say? Anyway, but off of that, I was one of the fortunate ones who could have, at that point, afforded a crib off of music. You know, I did the Kickstarter, and I had a nice little sponsorship, and I had a couple of other things working. Of course, people who listen to my music know that I fumbled the bag. I talk about that bag all the time that I fumbled. And yeah, I fumbled the bag, but I can tell all of you artists how to get that said bag. When you walk into certain places empty-handed and walk out with $12,000, $15,000 checks, you know what I'm saying? Like, virtually tax-free for the most part, if you know how to do your taxes right. But I can tell them where to look, because the people who could have, like, what we consider making it, they weren't even asking in the right questions, and they weren't asking in the right places. They weren't asking the right people, because once you're quote unquote in the scene, like, people say gatekeepers and all this stuff, but most of this knowledge is public knowledge if you know where to look. But it's not a secret, you know what I mean? Like, if y'all want to ask me, hit me in the DMs and be like, bro, where the money at? And I'll tell you, like, I'm not going to bring you to fish, but I'm going to teach you how to fish, like, in the right way, so that and then I'm going to also preach to you, don't fumble the fucking bag and make me look stupid. Because if I fumble the bag and you fumble the bag, we both bumbling idiots at that point. You know what I'm saying? When you get the bag, do the right thing with it, invest in your community, invest in yourself, and treat your art like it's a job. So you got to wake up and put in 6 hours a day, not 8. Don't work yourself to death. I never preach that. That's not good for your mental health. But you got to at least work 6 hours a day on your craft in some way or another. And part of that got to be to bring in some income. You know what I mean? But I can tell cats where the bag is at.
And talk a little bit about what other ventures you've got going on. I mentioned, or I alluded to, the podcast earlier, but
that made me a couple dollars.
Talk to people about what else you got going on.
So right now I got season 1 of the EO podcast that's gradually coming out as we speak. There's some episodes somewhere on your streaming services like Apple. So I just found out Apple got like you can't find my podcast on Apple Music. It's on Apple Podcasts. That's so weird. I didn't even know nothing about that, bro. I was like, you got to download the whole separate app in the pocket of Apple Music. So if you use Apple Music, Apple Podcasts is free for you. Go to Apple Podcasts and look up the EO podcast with Lord Fess. On Spotify, it's really easy to find. Just type in the EO podcast with Lord Fess, and anywhere else that you listen to your podcast at. I think we're on YouTube Music and all that other stuff. But that's brought to you by my own LLC, Lord's Media, and in partnership with Capital Broadcasting Company. But what other ventures do I have? Besides my rap music, you can find me on all the social media at LXRDFESS. That's Lord Fess with an X. We're getting into creative directing now that we have the podcast out. I got a little cartoon. Have you seen the cartoon?
I don't think so.
Oh man, you gotta look at the cartoon. So I'll text you that. Like, got a little cartoon and stuff, but I'm getting more in the creative directing space too. Still writing my music. I Ain't Been Sleeping Lately is coming out soon. That's a full project produced by Marv Crowd. But yeah, watch season 4 of Insecure and figure out which song I wrote on there. Shoot, I can't think of anything else right now.
You don't need to. You don't need to think of anything else. That's you got your hands full. You're hooping twice a week, if not more.
I am hooping twice a week. Where the leagues at, man? I need a nice, safe, healthy league. I'll go hoop with a mask on if they require it. I need a league now to start.
This might be. We're talking about GM in the Pro-Am. We might just have to GM an outdoor league somewhere.
Let's do a charity game, man. Let's try to figure that out.
I would actually love that. If anybody listening to this wants to get involved in a charity game, I would 100% do. We could do the All-Star game, do the 3-point contest, the dunk contest. All that stuff. Skills challenge, whatever. Horse game, King of the Hill.
Let's do it. How long would it take us realistically to set something like that up? More than a month, or you think 30 days is enough time to set it up? Because we just need venue, players, and sponsors at this point, right?
Well, we got a venue. I think we could play at Hillside.
Indoor? Oh, you want to do outdoor?
I was thinking outdoor, yeah, because the weather's still nice. People are still worried about COVID. We'll talk about this in a separate planning meeting. But if anybody's
I want these
listening
people
to this,
to hear about it.
I know
they're gonna start getting hyped.
You're right.
Ready.
You're
ready.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show today, man. I enjoy catching up with you, and you're one of my longest friends in the community here. So it's always a pleasure. I look forward to the day. I don't know when it'll happen, but I would love to pay you back for being on the show by being on the EO podcast. So whenever you're ready.
Nah, you gotta. That's it. Hey, let's hope they buy the second season. You feel me?
Okay. I'll put
like
the pressure
we got
on.
Our fingers crossed. Yeah, put the pressure on. Snap the fingers and get all the good juju going that they purchased the second season, man. It was just a really, let me just say, it's a really big deal for me being a young boy of color who didn't finish school, but people believe in my talents and my abilities that much to want to invest any dollar, any amount of money in me, let alone, you know what I'm saying, help me be able to actually take care of my child and my family off of just my fucking words, bro. Like, I just talk all day. I either sing or I'm talking to people on the podcast. Like, I run my mouth for a living, and that's a fucking blessing. I just want to iterate that to anybody who chasing whatever you after and shit, and you got some talents and shit. If you be realistic with your talents, if you need to get better at it. But once you feel like you're at that point to get better, spread the word, let people know, because there's somebody out there that's going to believe in you enough to fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like, put something behind you, and then that helps you believe in yourself more. So, like, to be honest, I'm the best rapper when I'm rapping cocky and I'm talking that shit. So when somebody believe in you, it give you a little bit more of a, like, it's like either people don't believe in you, have a chip on your shoulder, or everybody's counting on you and you got a chip on your shoulder. But either way, I use that as fuel, and that shit to make my shit better. And I keep fucking surprising myself, bro. Like, I didn't think that was fucking possible. We talk about they pay for fucking WRL news and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? So for them to invest bread into a little black boy with a little cartoon and a couple things to say, you know what I mean?
Respect. I love that.
Bro.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I could use a little juice myself. So thanks again for being on the show. I know you got to get out of here. Everybody knows where to find you. Lord Fess on the interwebs. It's LXRD.
RD.
FESS. Lord Fess. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Yeah, bro. Thank you, bro. Thank you so
Always.
much. Hey,
Always.
first of all, I ain't even tell you that first live event, you gotta do more of those. And that real, like, I ain't even gonna cap. That's one of the first times I actually sat back and was like, damn, I'm proud of Justin because this is fire. Cause that's like, when people do shit I wish I had thought of, that's when that shit become like real to me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, damn, I wish I had thought of that shit. And it don't come from an envy space. It's like, damn, that's fucking fire. Because that's real innovation to me. Like some shit niggas ain't thought of, like people doing like podcasts live, but for you to be brave enough to do it in the space and the climate that we in right now, like I don't even know if people ready to come outside. You did that shit and people was out and they were attentive and they were eating up the information and shit. And people just, like I said, like people believe in me, people believe in you too. Like everybody that was out there front and center, they fucking believe in your shit. So, bro, we fucking blessed. You feel me?
100%. That's
we need to start
the wind in my
rap
sails
group.
that I needed. So,
But yeah, bro. Well, shit, man. I appreciate you for having me on, bro. And as soon as I can get you on the EO, we gonna do it.
all right, I'll hold you to it.
All right, bro.
Peace.